Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning, and time for another episode of Sales Logic. I'm hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. Mark, has it been a good week for you?
It has been a great week, and I'll tell you what, looking forward to the show because we got a great topic, great question, great book from a good friend of ours. It's gonna be a good show.
Yeah, lots of good stuff happening. You in Dallas?
I am in Dallas today and heading out west next week. Yeah. You've been on the road this week, right?
Yeah, I have been on the road this week and glad to be home for a couple of days, but I head back out on Monday. All right, I'll go ahead and hit the video and we will dive in. Hey, once again, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, 8 a.m. Eastern, time for a Sales Logic. Before Mark dives in and tells you everything that we've got planned for today, I always like to tell you how the show works. We start off the show every week, every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern with a question from you, the audience. That's right. If you want to be a part of Sales Logic, if you are stuck, if you have a question, something you need solved, just shoot a question out to Mark or to me, or just go to saleslogicpodcast.com. We cover a hot topic. We recommend a book. And because we want you to leave with return on investment, we have a lightning round. Now, one more thing we've got to offer you. Go to saleslogicpodcast.com. Check out the mastermind. I mean, we are cooking with gas on this thing and really headed into the fourth quarter. Some great members, some great topics. All right, Mark, what is on tap for today?
Well, and Natalie, one of our members, has already chimed in this morning. Good morning, Natalie. Hey, the topic, decision makers. Everything you need to know. The question, let's jump right in. The question comes from Daniel in Evora, Portugal. I have a feeling you probably were with him last week.
I was.
I am struggling these last few months in sales. I'm getting to the decision maker, having a great conversation, but then the deal seems to stall. I track my days it takes to close a sale, and for the past 6 months, it has been growing in the wrong direction. Advice.
All right, Daniel, you are right. I was with Daniel, and I got asked this question while I was working in Portugal last week. And decision makers are interesting, and I love this topic because you have to assess a decision maker. Just because you assume the person is the decision maker doesn't necessarily make them the decision maker. So you've got to assess to determine, first of all, does this decision maker have the power to make that decision? And then you need to understand, given the decision maker's position, what is their pain point as it relates to your product or service?
Oh, there's so much we could dive in on this one. And I totally agree with what you're saying, because there's really three types of decision makers, especially if you're dealing with people where there could be multiple decision makers or multiple people you have to go through. There's the coach, the coach who's just is going to kind of just help you along. And they're going to, oh yeah, this is great. This is great. This is great. Then there's the champion, the one who is really going to go to bat for you. And then there's the economic buyer, the one who's actually got the ability to write the check. And I'll tell you what, so many times what happens we in sales is that we wind up talking with the coach. Oh, they like it. Oh, you're doing great. Oh, this is great. But they have no power. Just because somebody can have a conversation with you doesn't mean they're valid, doesn't mean they're worthy of your time. Here's the question I love to ask. How have you made decisions like this in the past? I love asking that question because it begins to get out on the table. What's the process? Who are the people involved, and other things? I'm sure you got a lot more thoughts on it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important questions you can ask the decision maker is about the budget. I mean, talk about the budgeting process and where this fits in and what approval process needs to happen from a budgeting standpoint. Who else needs to be engaged? Who else needs to be involved? Because the thing about decision makers in today's marketplace is a lot of time this is strategic. Usually it's a committee decision. It's not just one person. I mean, Mark and I have this quite a bit in our business. I'll speak with a meeting planner. I just had this yesterday. Somebody reached out to me really interested in what I speak about, but now we have to get 2 or 3 people involved in that process. And you need to know who all needs to be involved in the decision-making process.
Yeah, this is so key because right now, I mean, people are a little bit antsy about the economy, not quite sure where the economy is going. So people are being naturally a little bit slower. Notice I didn't use the R word.
Yeah, I did notice that.
And people are being a little bit slower, a little bit more cautious. And what this means is that people are moving forward, but really only if it's their top number one or number two decision that they have to deal with. So you may have a great item, you may have a great solution, but if it's not critical to them, they're going to push you off. And I think, Daniel, this is what's happening. I've seen it in my own business. Oh, yeah, it's great. I'm sure you've seen it in your business too, Mayor. They only make the decision when it's critical. So we have to figure out what are the top two things that they're concerned with. What are their top two issues? And how do we frame our solution to be fitting into that?
Yeah, Mark, I love what you're saying about this. I got this question yesterday when I was presenting at National Speakers Association, the Ohio chapter, and somebody raised their hand and said, I've got a great value proposition. I really am solving the right pain point, but they don't seem to want to pay for it. And I think this is one of the most frustrating things from sales professionals. It's a number 1 to 2 priority for them, but they don't know it's a number 1 to 2 priority for them. And no matter how good a salesperson you are, sometimes they just don't want to deal with it. I was sharing with this particular audience member. I said, I work in an industry where their talent issue is significant. They've got no bench strength. The future of this organization, it is labeled as not sexy and attractive to young people. It's required to come into the office. They've got to make some changes. They don't want to. So I'm wasting my time and my energy trying to convince the decision maker that what I sell is important.
And that's key, because what you have to do is you have to frame your solution into the downstream. What do I mean by downstream? How is buying from you? How does investing in you? And I love to use the term investing. People don't want to buy, they want to invest because they want a solution. How is it going to help them downstream? How's that going to help them with the next thing that they need to get taken care of? And if I can begin to frame my solution around how it's going to help you downstream, and then begin to put time to it. In other words, hey, we can deal with this year, or we can deal with this next year. And if you deal with it this year, you're going to be able to do X, X, X. And if you wait a year, guess what? All those X's are off the table. So again, you have to be able to understand where your customer is coming from. Again, you can have the best solution in the world, but if it doesn't fit the problem they have right now, they're not interested.
Yeah, which means, which gets back to really what I felt was Daniel's issue, and that is that you need to qualify the decision maker. Not just qualify, do they have enough, do they have the right title? Do they control the budget? Can they actually make the decision? But do they care about the problem that you're solving? Is it the right fit? And if it is, you definitely I definitely think that we get in front of prospects and sometimes they don't always understand the problem that they've got, and we try to guide them there. But sometimes they just got their head in the sand and they don't want to go there.
Well, that's key, because they may have their head in the sand because they're dealing with something that's even much bigger, much different, and they're not willing to share with you what that is. And you've got to be prepared for that. But this is where early on in prospecting, you open up these relationships, you create that level of trust, you create that level of authenticity, you create that level of a comfort space for them to be able to share with you. Because if they've got that and they don't share it with you, you are just flat out wasting your time. I love Jeffrey's comment. Don't waste the time of C-suite to ask what the problems are. Get deep into the account and know people's names and challenges you can take to the C-suite. Yes, this is all about doing your homework. And I love how Jeffrey ends his comment here. Go deep. So many salespeople are afraid to go deep because, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. Well, guess what? If you go through all this process and the customer doesn't buy, guess what? You've wasted your time. So you better go deep early. Swim in the deep end. It's okay. You won't drown.
Yeah. Good morning, John Register. So glad you are here. I think one of the most unique ways to really get in front of decision makers, though, and help them understand the problems that you solve, and for you to assess them, is to do some form of quiz or survey or assessment to go in basically with, I know in my business, I've got a system for thriving in uncertainty. And it's a 9-step formula of what it takes to thrive no matter what the marketplace throws at you. And a lot of times, if I ask people point blank, they think they navigate uncertainty pretty well. But when I go through my assessment with them, I can really find the areas where they're challenged. And then I can show them where the blind spot is.
And when you show them what the blind spot is, there's different ways that you go about this. I'm going to share a quick example. I was working with a sales team the other day, and the account exec getting into a Fortune 500 company, and very close, clearly have got the economic buyer. This is the person who can write the check, but there's hesitancy. And what it came down to was, as we did some probing, this economic buyer just is, there've been a few decisions that haven't gone quite right. So the decision maker is really looking for, hey, I got to make sure that everybody's on board. So what we said is that we got to go in and provide this economic buyer with air cover. What do we mean? By going in and getting other people in the company on board with it to make it that much easier for them. You see, when you understand the critical need, which for this economic buyer is, I got to make sure that this is the right decision. I believe it's the right, but I got to make sure by having others around me feeling the same way. And you can only do that by being willing to go deep, go back to Jeffrey's comment, and really understand that the customer will take you to the need and the solution. If you take the time to be patient, do your homework, ask questions, listen, and ask more questions.
Great points. I think also, if you start to broach the subject of next steps with the decision maker, is there hesitancy? Is there hesitancy around this? I think about a call that I had last week where the person on the other line was really trying to push me to sign on the bottom line immediately that day. She wanted to send me some information and basically get my credit card and do it. And in all honesty, it's about changing our whole phone carrier. And I really needed to talk to my husband first. I didn't want to change his phone line without asking him or telling him, what I was doing, and kind of discuss our options around that. So Mark, help me get where I want to get in this. She lost that sale because she pushed me too hard. She didn't assess the decision maker right. Like, it wasn't a hesitancy that I wasn't the decision maker, because at the end of the day, I handle that bill in our household. I'm going to pay it, and Rob's going to do what I want to do. But I did want to talk to him about it first. And she pushed me too hard to make a decision right then that I let it go. And I feel like assessing the decision maker, part is are you in front of the right person? But you need to understand where they are. Like, this wasn't, I've got to travel solid for the next 3 weeks. I'm gone 5 days a week, every single week. I don't have time to change my phone. I'd really like to do this second week in October because I'm home. And if anything goes wrong, I've got some time with it. But she pushed me too hard, too fast by not assessing where I was in the buying cycle.
That's so key, because it's understanding the process, and understanding your critical needs. And if she had taken the time to really understand your process and made it comfortable for you to share the second week of October, but you know what? She's probably trying to chase a quarter end number. She's probably trying to chase the end of September. But guess what? This is where her commission breath, to quote Larry, our good friend Larry Levine, is getting that person in trouble. Yeah. Hey, I love John's comment here. One strategy: find out a problem. Go to the company white paper, shareholder report. This is so key. It's amazing. I was with some students this week at University of Texas, Dallas. I was doing a class there, and a couple of them came up to me afterwards and asked me, hey, what's the fastest way to read an annual report? Okay, slowly, but okay, we'll put that aside. I said, go to the risks section. Every annual report, the company has to identify what are the risks. Go to the risks. That is immediately going to tell you what are the critical issues that the company is concerned with, the C-suite's concerned with. Then I come back around and I find what are the key initiatives? Where are they spending the money? Anyway, I could go into a 15-minute process on this, but the idea is, John, you're spot on. The information's out there. It's amazing. The World Wide Web, it's all out there. Go to the risks section of the annual report or the quarterly report.
Yeah, I think that we've got really, really great comments coming in here. Abbas, it's crucial to have a deep understanding of your customers, equipped with the ability to navigate challenges and obstacles effectively. Moreover, establishing connections with key decision makers is paramount for success. They've got to feel connected with you, which I love this because this is exactly where I was going to go. You have to really be opening and asking a lot of questions as you go in to speak with decision makers. Because let's assume that I'm talking with Mark and I figure out he isn't the decision maker. Well, I can't just get up and walk out of that room or turn off that Zoom and forget about Mark, because he may not be the ultimate decision maker, but he's still integral in the part. This happens in our business all the time. And John Register, you're going to be able to relate to this. You're on the phone, you've got the meeting planner, but there is still this dark committee that you've got to pass through. And you can realize that the committee's going to make the decision, just like the CEO for many sales professionals or the CFO, but you have to work with the person that you're connected to. For example, let's assume that Mark is head of sales. He's the chief revenue officer for the organization. Well, for Mark, I've got to make my proposal and my presentation based on how I'm going to drive sales. But this may have to get in front of the CFO who's going to sign off on this. How am I going to ensure return on investment quickly? How is this going to be cost efficient? Because that's the pain point of the CFO.
That is so key. Monday or Tuesday of this week, I was having a conversation with a CEO who I was introduced to. Never talked with the CEO before, and great conversation. And I wanted to kind of get to some business, wanted to get to some things, but clearly, the committee, the board, this was going to have to go to the board. And the CEO was not going to introduce me to the board on the first meeting. But what do? I just establish the relationship and say, let's get that together. Hey, our calendars, our schedules are going to cross. We're going to be in the same city sometime in the next few weeks. Let's grab dinner. Let's talk. Let's move through the process. And ultimately, I'm sure that he will introduce me to some of the board members. And what does that do? That begins to open up another relationship. You have to be willing to go be patient in terms of the decision maker, because the CEO is the decision maker, but he can't get sideways with his board. So you got to keep that in mind. Anytime you're dealing with a decision, like the meeting planner may be kind of the decision maker, but they got this committee over here that they can't get sideways with them or they're in trouble.
Yeah. It's just really, really important. In essence, what we're talking about is, number one, as a sales professional, you have got to assess, just because you get a name in today's marketplace, the chances that is going to be the only decision maker are slim to none. So a great question to ask is, who else is impacted? I don't like to ask who else is involved in this process, because that sounds like it's about me. Like I'm trying to figure out what I's and T's I've got to dot and cross. The question that I like to ask is, tell me who is going to be impacted positively or negatively by moving forward with a decision like that, because that begins to help me understand who else is probably going to be involved in this process. And I may never get in front of them. I may never talk to them, but my proposal has to speak to what's important to them.
Yeah. And I love Jeffrey's comment here, because he's talking about name dropping a big company, describing challenges they're facing. And what this is all about is the decision maker has to see you as a peer. If they see you as a peer, what you say and what you ask is going to resonate a lot more. In fact, here's something interesting. Remember, it's not necessarily what you say, it's what you ask. Can you ask those really critical, strategic questions that get that decision maker? Like for that meeting planner, what are the challenges you're having? And how do you want the people to act and do once the meeting's over? It's going downstream with them. We have to be willing to ask these strategic questions. I love John's comment. John registers spot on. The bomb video that you're going to send to them. Yeah, I do not talk about their problems as much, because they're trying to get to know me at that point. But I share with them a little bit about who I am. See, so he's using bomb video very early on. And what does this do? There's something about it. When I can connect a face, it just begins to relax people. And early on in the process, you've got to relax people to get them to understand you and to be comfortable in sharing with you. We're getting great comments this morning, man. We're only able to put up a few of them, but wow, it's powerful.
One of the things that I like to do is that, first of all, the person that I'm in front of, I'm working to make them happy first. And once I understand what their problems are and I can solve their problems, we can become partners. And what I mean by that is I sell Mark. Mark's biggest issue is, can I help his sales team make fourth quarter the best quarter of the year? Once I can do that, Mark's still got to sell me to the CEO, the head of marketing, the CFO and things. I'll say to Mark, how do we work together? What do we need to do? What are, getting him to give me what the challenges are. And I make the two of us partners in selling everybody else. I do that because, number one, Mark can't sell the rest of the company as well as I can. The person that you are engaging with, they don't have as big a vested interest, and they're not the specialist at it. The second is, by becoming partners, you've got somebody who's more influential than you are selling the other group, but selling it with what you've got. I do this with meeting planners all the time. I say, when's the next committee meeting? I don't want you to have to worry about that. Let's do this together. And
I love that strategy. I'm gonna add in one more. You may have that person, you may have this decision maker add in something else, or say they're working on something else. I don't hesitate to give them information. For instance, the book we're going to highlight today, I've already sent several copies out to other people because they're talking to me about a sales issue. And I go, hey, I got a friend of mine who just came out with a great book. I'm going to go ahead and send you a copy by way of Amazon. And it has nothing to do with what I'm selling, what I'm doing. But you know what? They're appreciative. They like that. And suddenly they begin to see me more like a peer. So they become much more receptive. Natalie's comment, persistence pays off. The long game. You have to be prepared to play the long game, especially the bigger the companies you get into. Hey, you're not going to put this up on the screen, but I sure am. John Register chimes in here. Congratulations to Meridith, Elliott, Powell, CSP, CPAE, High Point University professor. Are you now untouchable?
No.
Congratulations, Meredith.
Thank you. Very, very, very excited about that. All right. Let's see what we've got Hugh up here talking about. Going deep helps you understand if the client you want to pursue and sell is aligned with what you offer. Oh my God, Hugh, that is huge. I was on the phone with a woman from California the other day, works in the financial services space, smack in my zone. And we were talking about uncertainty and change. And she said, well, we're in the financial services business. We don't have that much change. At that moment, I've got the CEO. She's not my client. Now, I could have closed that deal. I could have closed it all day long. I'm not good a salesperson, but what a waste of my time and my energy. Well said. She was not aligned, and that's not a good close.
She said there was no change in her industry.
Yeah, she said I don't really see a need for us to change or much. Things stay the same.
Wow, is there a paper bag over her head? Or
right,
what?
no kidding, right?
Wow,
yeah,
that is amazing. But see, this is the whole thing. You've got to understand. And Hugh, you're another one of the members of the Sales Logic Mastermind. Thank you for chiming in. There's so many ways that we can be drilling down with our customers. The key thing is this: you've got to be willing to have the conversation, and you've got to be willing to ask questions. Here's what I found: the further up the food chain I go, the more important the questions are I ask. It's not the information I tell, it's the questions I ask, because my objective is to get that person thinking. And if I can get them thinking, then guess what? I've got a conversation going. The ultimate question for a decision maker is when I can sit there and ask you a question that you, the decision maker, don't have the answer to, and I don't have the answer to. Whoa, that's a scary, creepy. No, it's not, because it creates a conversation. It creates a conversation, and it's amazing at what's going to come out of it.
Absolutely. All right. So what is our book for the week?
Well, our book is by Mike Weinberg, great friend of ours, First Time Manager Sales. I just got done reading it last night and posting the Amazon review, but Mike Weinberg has such a style, and he goes through First Time Manager for Sales. And I would hold it up, but I don't have a hard copy. It's on my Kindle. But it is a excellent book. And you know what? It's an easy read because he breaks down chapters. There's probably about 18 or 19 chapters. And he breaks it down into small nuggets that you can digest. Here's the big takeaway. Don't spend your time focusing on the low performers. Spend your time focusing on the top performers. Yes, Mike. I love that. I love that.
All right. Lightning round.
Lightning round. Top 10 ways to get to decision makers. Go.
Number 1, network, network, network. Get into the pool where those decision makers are and meet them in a setting that is not sales call related.
Do your homework. As John Register said, read the reports, see what's out there on the internet, get to know everything about the company before you make the call.
Position yourself as an expert in the field. Get them coming to you.
Don't hesitate to create multiple contacts. The bigger the company, the more contacts it's going to take.
Yeah, I would say go to their peers, people that you know that are connected to them, and use it as an introduction standpoint.
Reference other companies that they respect, other companies in their peer set. Hey, we've had a chance to work with so-and-so. We've had a chance. Use those as reference points to get your way in.
Yeah, use the ultimate pain point. Let them know that you understand these are the biggest challenges in the industry. This is what you found working with other experts in the industry, and you have solutions and challenges to solve those.
Play the long game. With each contact you make, you want to create a CTA, the call to action, but don't be blown off if they don't buy into it. But play the long game. Keep coming back. As Meredith says, follow up, follow up, follow up.
Yeah, I would say that, when it comes to getting through the door with decision makers, you have got to be seen as somebody that they need to talk to. In other words, I had a great CEO say to me, I really don't need somebody coming through my door and saying, what keeps you up at night? I need somebody coming through the door and telling me, this is what keeps you up at night, and I've got the solution so you can get a good night's sleep.
Yes, I'm going to say it. Social media. Oh, I just said it. Go ahead. Don't hesitate to LinkedIn, but do not do connect and pitch. You just follow them. You may connect with them. You engage with them. Let them see you as an expert, because your reputation arrives before you do. You share one more. I'll share one more. We'll close it down.
Yeah. Look into their industry conferences and their industry magazines, things like that. Look for places where you could be interviewed, you can present, and you can position yourself as somebody that has the answers and solutions they need.
Be seen as a peer in your industry. This is why we talk a lot about your ICP, your ideal customer profile. When you stay in your vertical, when you stay in your space, it is amazing at what can happen. Hey, with that, we want to say, first of all, check out Sales Logic podcast website and Sales Logic Mastermind, because I'll tell you what, people are joining every week, and we love the group. We love the engagement. It's been absolutely fantastic. Anyway, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage, and
the sale becomes logical.
All right. Check out saleslogicpodcast.com. Check out the mastermind. Reach out to Mark and send us a question. We'll feature you right here on the podcast, and we'll see you right back here next week. Thank you, amazing audience. We love you, and we will see you right back here next week.